back to the daily grind, and shout out to the full-time patrons. Make sure to hit subscribe if you're new and hit thumbs up if you're not a baby back bagel biting bitch boy, cause you know what time it is. It's full time.
MMA.
And what is going on, full-time family? It is time to break down UFC 238. Henry Cejudo versus Marlon Moraes going down tomorrow, Saturday, June 8th. We're going to be breaking down the entire main card, but we're going to take a look at the full fight card. We've got a great main card coming up, 2 title fights, and of course the people's main event, Donald Cerrone versus Tony Ferguson. We got Cowboy versus El Cucuy, the main card. Let's take a look at it real fast. The things get kicked off with Tuivasa versus Blackboy Ivanov, 2 of the top 15 ranked heavyweights in the UFC. We've got 2 of the top 10 ranked bantamweights in the world, Jimmy Rivera versus Peter Yan. That's going to be a fun fight. Like I said, the people's main event, El Cucuy, Tony Ferguson taking on Cowboy Donald Cerrone. Man, we all can't wait for that fight. On paper, fight of the year contender, be there or be square. Then, of course, the 2 title fights of the night. Valentina Shevchenko defending her flyweight title for the first time against Jessica Evil Eye. And then, of course, the messenger, Henry Cejudo, looking to capture his 2nd title against Marlon Moraes. Henry Cejudo moving up from 125 pounds. He already knocked out TJ Dillashaw, which is how he got this title shot, but it was in his weight class. Since then, TJ Dillashaw failed a drug test for EPO and was stripped of his title and suspended for 2 years, so now the belt is vacant. These guys look to claim that title. If Marlon Moraes wins, he will be the UFC's bantamweight champion, and Henry Cejudo, if he wins, he will be the UFC's flyweight and bantamweight champion, so a lot on the line there. So great main card. That's what we're going to really be breaking down today, to give you my predictions for all 5 of these fights. But let's take a look at the full fight card, because I've been at work all week, so I'm looking forward to watching these fights all the way from the early prelims, to be honest. Tatiana Suarez versus Nina Ansaroff, amazing fight. Winner of that fight likely is going to be fighting Jessica Andrade for the title. Tatiana Suarez versus Jessica Andrade would be an amazing fight. Nina Ansaroff has just been proving people wrong fight after fight. She's the wife of Amanda Nunes, and Amanda Nunes did say she will be the strawweight champion one day, and she has been moving toward that ever since. I mean, she's been looking great, but she's going against one of WMMA's probably best wrestlers of all times to date. Tatiana Suarez is one of the only girls you know that has been wrestling, I mean, since she was 5 years old. Like, she's actually a lifelong wrestler, and she's now in WMMA, and usually those guys become the best fighters in the world. If you look at a lot of the best MMA fighters in the world, it's guys that have a strong wrestling base, whether it's John Jones, Daniel Cormier, George St. Pierre. A lot of these guys have strong wrestling bases, and usually if you look at the best fighters in the world that are not wrestlers, their weakness is wrestling, right? Because if you're a Conor McGregor or even a Max Holloway, a lot of these guys who are mainly strikers, they tend to, have tough matchups against the wrestlers. So wrestling is just the base that you really want if you're trying to be a champion one day, in my opinion. And Tatiana Suarez has that. It's the first time we've really seen this in WMMA, so I think she's got a great matchup here against Nina Ansaroff, and I would love to see her fight Jessica Andrade. So we'll see where that goes. Aljamain Sterling versus Pedro Munoz. I cannot wait for that fight. Aljamain Sterling, of course, we have interviewed on the channel. That's a fight between 2 of the best bantamweights in the world. Winner of this fight could be fighting either Henry Cejudo or Marlon Moraes next for the belt. Aljamain Sterling's one of the most, even though he's ranked number 3, he's still one of the most underrated bantamweights in the division. And people are asleep on Aljamain. Pedro Munoz, he's also a really good fighter. They've got a little bit of a rivalry coming into this because Aljamain Sterling mentioned that he would like Pedro Munoz tested more for this fight. You got champions getting popped for EPO, so he's like, man, my life is on the line. I want to make sure my opponent's getting tested for everything, especially considering he has failed a test in his past. And Pedro Munoz didn't take too kindly to that, so they had a little bit of a back and forth. And Aljamain Sterling ended up calling him Pedro Munoz. I thought that was pretty clever. So this is going to be a good fight. I'll definitely be watching that one. Karolina Kowalkiewicz versus Alexa Grasso. How could you not watch this fight? Karolina Kowalkiewicz coming off of the most brutal knockout loss in UFC, MMA, women's MMA history. That one punch by Jessica Andrade is something we've never seen before in WMMA. That is the top. It takes the cake. I'm not talking about a punch and then a kick and then some follow-up. I'm talking about one punch. That was Jessica Andrade versus Karolina Kowalkiewicz. Karolina Kowalkiewicz is still my girl, though, man. She's a really good fighter. I think she's even underrated. I think her performance against Joanna Jędrzejczyk when she was champion was underrated. So this is going to be a good fight. She's taking on Alexa Grasso. I'm really looking forward to watching this one as well. This whole card is stacked, man. Ricardo Lamas versus Calvin Kattar. This is an amazing fight. Calvin Kattar's what, like 17-3, some really good record like that. He's only got 3 or 4 fights in the UFC, but he's a legit fighter. I remember when he fought Shane Burgos, I think it might have been his UFC debut, but he's been fighting tough fighters since he's been in the UFC, and that's no different here. He's taking on Ricardo Lamas, who used to be in the top 5 of the featherweight division. Went on a little bit of a skid, but Ricardo Lamas definitely has paid his dues and put in work, so this is a good matchup here. Let's check out, man, this whole prelims is so good. Let's check out the early prelims. Jan Sionin versus Angela Hill. All right, it's starting to damper down. Bavon Lewis versus Darren Stewart. Caitlin Chukagian versus Joanne Calderwood. Okay, so we got some solid fights there. None of them that really, stand out to me, though. Caitlin Chukagian versus Joanne Calderwood actually is a really good fight. Winner of this fight, there's definitely title implications here. They could be fighting women's flyweight. Either one of that, this could literally be a #1 contenders fight in the flyweight division. So I think that should probably be quite a bit higher on the card. This is a #1 contenders fight, and it's the very first fight, the opener. The winner of this fight likely fights for the title next, and it's opening up the Fight Pass prelims. That doesn't make much sense to me. But hey, man, let's get to the main card. Let's get to the breakdown. Let's get to the predictions. We're going to, of course, start with the first fight of the night. We'll save the best for last. Actually, we're going to do the best in the middle because the best fight, of course, is Tony Ferguson versus Donald Cerrone. But, hey, Henry Cejudo versus Moraes is a really good fight as well. Really interested to see how Henry Cejudo looks at bantamweight. A lot of people, I think, are counting Henry Cejudo out, and I think that is fucking insane, and I'll explain why. Like, I'm picking Henry Cejudo to win this fight, and it's not really close to me, and I've seen other people saying if you're picking Henry Cejudo, you're fucking crazy. I don't know what they're smoking. You'll understand why in my breakdown, but let's get to the first fight of the night. We're going to be having Tuivasa taking on Blagoy Ivanov. I don't know why that name just has to be pronounced in that way. You have to pronounce Blagoy Ivanov. It just seems like some Russian heavyweight bad guy on some fucking movie, and that just seems like how it would be pronounced. So with that being said, we're gonna be breaking down this heavyweight fight between Bam Bam Tuivasa and Baga Blagoy Ivanov. Tuivasa is 10-1 with 4 fights in the UFC, coming off of a loss to Junior Dos Santos. Blagoy Ivanov is 17-2 with 2 fights in the UFC, coming off a win over Ben Rothwell after losing his UFC debut to Junior Dos Santos. Blagoy Ivanov should win this fight on paper. He's the more experienced guy, and he was fighting higher level competition outside the UFC than Tuivasa. But it's hard to judge Tuivasa's competition outside the UFC because he finished them all in the first round. Also, Tuivasa has a slight edge in UFC experience in the body type of 2 of the best fighters in the world, Daniel Cormier and Anthony Ruiz Jr. Pause. It's pretty much a toss-up, but I think I'm going to have to take Ruiz Jr. in this fight just because it's a toss-up. I like Bam Bam, and he does have a little more UFC experience. We know he knocks dudes fucking silly. So Blagoy Ivanov could very well win this fight. It's a toss-up for me. Flip your coin, make your choice, but I'm going with Ruiz Jr. Moving on to the bantamweight bout. 2 top 10 bantamweights in the world. Craig, we got Jimmy Rivera versus Peter Yan. Peter Yan, no mercy. He's 12-1 as a professional, and he's undefeated in his 4 fights in the UFC, coming off of a unanimous decision victory over John Dodson. Jimmy Rivera has doubled the professional experience at 22-3, and he's 6-2 in the UFC, coming off a unanimous decision loss to Aljamain Sterling, who, as I previously mentioned, I feel like is one of the most underrated contenders in the UFC. I'm going to take Jimmy Rivera here. He's got double the experience inside and outside the UFC, and he's been fighting the legit UFC caliber competition for a longer time, only losing to the best bantamweights in the world. I got to go with El Terror, Jimmy Rivera. Where's my damn green check mark? There it is. Let's go back to Tai Tuivasa. There we go. Make sure, my green check mark has to be over the correct fighter, just for the people that happen to be skipping through the video. I got love for them too. So Jimmy Rivera, Tai Tuivasa Jr. Let's move on to the people's main event. We got to get the check mark in the middle for this one. You don't know who I'm picking. Let's go. Tony Ferguson versus Donald Cerrone. I want to be a bitch and not make a pick in this fight, but I can't do that. I really don't want to pick a winner in this fight. This is the people's main event. On paper, this is a fight of the year contender. Donald Cerrone is a surefire first ballot UFC Hall of Famer who's always down to fight anyone, anywhere, anytime. And he's on a fucking tear right now since moving back down to 155 pounds, looking like a future contender and flirting with the life-changing red panty night with Conor McGregor. Even though Cowboy has already done well for himself in his fight career, still a fight with Conor McGregor would be life-changing. There's been talks that fight was booked. Donald Cerrone's been looking great in the division, and now he's fighting the top contender. So if Donald Cerrone can win this fight, he could either get a title shot or a McGregor fight. Both of those, I think, are probably equal in stature. It'd be awesome to be the champion, but to be able to beat Conor McGregor would be life-changing, not even just monetarily. Just legacy-wise, that's a huge win. But I mean, winning the title would also be fucking amazing for Cowboy Cerrone as well. So, Donald Cerrone is on the horizon for big things. Tony Ferguson, on the other hand, has been chewed up and spit out and booed off stage, but he kept writing and moved right to the next cipher. Now he's a former UFC interim lightweight champion on a 12-winning streak who refuses to lose on some Brother Lynch shit. I refuse to lose. Oh, my bad. And he's one of the most exciting, well-rounded lightweights in the UFC. I really feel like Donald Cerrone will win this fight at this point in time, being on the tear he's been on against some really good lightweights, while Tony Ferguson's been dealing with injuries and outside the cage drama. But Tony Ferguson is fucking Tony Ferguson, so this fight is a toss-up. Fight of the year contender. If you put a gun to my head, I would pick Tony Ferguson, but that's just because I didn't want you to blow my brains out and I didn't have, the time to be indecisive. So fuck it. Since there's no gun to my head, I'll take Donald Cerrone. It's a coin flip, baby. Yo, this is just an amazing fight. Let's just enjoy it. It don't matter who wins this fight. This is just one of those fights as a fight fan that you live for. Two of the best fighters in the world. This is history in the making right here. This is legacy. I mean, this is like watching Kayla Harrison's very first fight. Oh, wait, she's not. Okay, not yet. My bad. But this... This is going to be an epic fight. Fight of the night contender. I mean, just... you could almost be speechless for this fight. I mean, so I'll say no more. Let's move to the title fights, people. I don't want to pick against Tony Ferguson, but there's no gun to my head, so that's my pick. I got Cowboy. All right. Valentina Shevchenko versus Jessica Ai. Okay, not too much to say here, guys. Valentina Shevchenko. Come on. Come the fuck on. Shevchenko versus Ai. No hot take here. I'm going to take the girl that's one of the best pound-for-pound fighters on the planet. You can bet the farm on this one, folks. I don't see a path to victory in this fight for Jessica Ai unless Valentina, God forbid, gets hurt during the fight. It would literally take Valentina to, like, some Michael Chandler get like hurt your own ankle in the fight and have to be hopping on one leg. And even on one leg, Valentina Shevchenko might fuck around and hop around and win this fight. So I'm taking Shevchenko, man. Come on. Jessica she's worthy fodder. She's earned her title shot, but I do think she's Shevchenko fodder at this point. We'll see. Valentina's sister, Antonina Shevchenko, did just lose to Roxanne Modafferi, and a lot of people believed that Antonina Shevchenko was, and Valentina Shevchenko are similar on skill level. A lot of people who, really believe Antonina Shevchenko was as good as Valentina. And so if that's true, Jessica has a chance to win this fight, but I never thought that was true. I think Valentina Shevchenko is world class in MMA, and we've seen her prove it time and time again. She's outstruck Holly Holm. She's fucking went 5 rounds with Amanda Nunes. She's almost beat Amanda Nunes. This girl is pound for pound one of the greatest, and she's in her division right now. Valentina Shevchenko might Priscilla Cachoeira Jessica in this fight. That's the type of shit I'm talking about. So I got Valentina. Moving on to the main event. And earlier on, you might have a guess who I'm picking, but let me break it down why. Because I feel like people are disrespecting Henry Cejudo, and I'm talking about his fights, his skills. I'm not talking about his cringy WWE girlfriend tango dancing, whatever he's doing. He's having fun, he's entertaining. I'm not talking about that. If you don't like that, I get it. But his fighting, his skills, what he's been able to accomplish in MMA, to count him out of this fight would be fucking, excuse my French, retarded. Check this out. Here's the breakdown. Marlon Moraes, right? He came over from World Series of Fighting as their champion. He's 22-5, riding a 4-fight winning streak, and on top of that, his most recent 3 fights have all came by way of first round finish. He's knocked guys out, and most recently he submitted Rafael Assunção, and that avenged his only loss in the UFC. His first fight in the UFC was a split decision loss to Assunção. He just avenged that when he finished Assunção in the first round. So Marlon Moraes has looked amazing. He's got a win over Aljamain Sterling, but he hasn't looked as good as Henry Cejudo. Henry Cejudo, he is an Olympic gold medalist in wrestling who holds a win over one of the greatest fighters of all time, Demetrius Johnson, and he just knocked out TJ Dillashaw on EPO. TJ Dillashaw was one of the fucking pound for pound greats at this point with what he had been able to do. He was moving down to that weight class. If he would have won that fight, we already know about TJ Dillashaw's skills and what he's been able to do in the bantamweight division, beating top contender after top contender. But, and was it with the help of EPO? I mean, you can only say that for the Cejudo fight because the other tests were clean, apparently. I mean, you can have your doubts or whatever, but still, he's got skills. He's got good wrestling. He's got good striking. We do know that about TJ Dillashaw. He is well-rounded. And so, he was on EPO, and Henry Cejudo still knocked his ass out after beating Demetrius Johnson. If you just take away the name and the cringe, just on paper, if I told you this guy beat Demetrius Johnson, took his belt, and then knocked out TJ Dillashaw on EPO, how could you count him out of anything? How could you count that guy out against anyone? Especially Marlon Moraes, who has looked amazing. But to be fair, Moraes, he hasn't fought any former UFC champions yet, any pound for pound greats yet. He also hasn't fought 5 rounds in the UFC. He also hasn't fought anyone in his career with the wrestling credentials of Henry Cejudo, who's an Olympic gold medalist. Although he did fight Aljamain Sterling, who's a great wrestler, and he did knock out Aljamain Sterling. But even Marlon Moraes himself admitted that that was a little fluky. He was just intending on kicking Aljo in the body, but Aljo just ducked at the wrong time, and he got caught early in the fight. So he didn't get to see much of Moraes wrestling in that fight. So Cejudo's got the wrestling advantage, the experience advantage. The only thing Moraes has is the size, I guess. And that's just, 2 inches of height. He's got some reach. But the wrestlers beat those types of dudes every day, B. Especially an Olympic level gold medalist who defeated Demetrius Johnson and knocked out EPO Dillashaw. Are you kidding me? How can you pick against Henry Cejudo in this fight? I'm lost. But hey, maybe it's just because you don't like him and so you don't want to root for him, so you don't want to pick him. But if you're trying to pick the winner of this fight, I think Henry Cejudo should win this fight. But we will see. We will see. But those are my predictions, guys. Let's go back through them real quick. I got Henry Cejudo. I got Valentina Shevchenko. I got Cowboy Cerrone. Even though I fucking hate making a pick in this fight. I hate picking against Tony Ferguson. I got Jimmy Rivera. And I got Tuivasa Jr. So Tuivasa, Jimmy Rivera, Donald Cerrone, Valentina Shevchenko, and Henry Cejudo. Those are my predictions, guys. And with that being said, thank you guys for checking out this video. Look forward to the fight companion. I will be doing one this week. I've been, working. I got my new promotion, so we've been on these 10-hour shifts, so I haven't had much time for this YouTube shit, but I'll definitely be doing the fight companion tomorrow. Tomorrow my day's off, so I got some time today. We will be watching the fights. I'm going to be hyped as fuck. Cannot wait. With that being said, make sure you subscribe to the channel, like this video. Much appreciated. It is what it is. Let the full-time family know what you think in the comments. I'm out.
Bye, Felicia.